Hello, welcome to the Inside the Birds 2023 Fantasy Football Special, presented, of course, by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. I'm Geoff Mosher with Adam Caplan, and, of course, from InsideTheBirds.com, Andrew DiCecco. This is part two of our fantasy football preview series. Last week, we did quarterbacks. This week, we have running backs. Of course, it's all available on InsideTheBirds.com. And as we get closer to the end of August, we will podcast all of our episodes as everyone gets closer to their fantasy football drafts. Gentlemen, I don't know if there's any position in fantasy football, much like real football, where there's so much variance from year to year. Sometimes a guy can be a top three finisher and then the next year be out of it. Sometimes a guy can be out of it and then the following year be in it. So the one thing I noticed as we put together our top five running backs is Andrew, Adam, you guys are very much on the same page, and I'm there with you on four of the top five. However, you guys are very scared of Jonathan Taylor. So, Adam, I'll start with you. He is not in your top five. This is a guy who 2 years ago looked like he'd be top five every year. Obviously had injuries last year. What are you afraid of?
Well, he hasn't practiced yet. That's the problem. He's not working. Yes, he's going to be, the Colts said he's going to be in Philly tomorrow when we're there at practice with the Colts for the joint practice, but we don't know when he's going to practice. We don't know if he's going to be on the field. We don't know if he's going to be ready for week one. Too much uncertainty. So there's no way in hell I'd put him in the top five. You can't, particularly for people drafting now, you got to know if this guy's going to be your first pick, if he's going to be your first running back, you have to have some certainty. And right now we have none.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But how much, Andrew, I'll ask you, how much good news on Jonathan Taylor would it take for you to put him back, if at all, in your top five?
Well, you'd want to hear obviously that he's getting some sort of reps, but like obviously when healthy, you look at the addition of Anthony Richardson, him being the starter. I think that's going to open things up for Jonathan Taylor. And I'm seeing a lot of drafts in which he's going very late too. You couple that with the volume that he's had earlier in his career. You wonder if these issues are going to continue to surface throughout the season. So this might not just be a one-time occurrence.
All right, we will see. Obviously, you're right. It was disappointing if you owned Jonathan Taylor last year, coming off the year he had 2 years ago. Me personally, I feel like what Andrew just said, if he's healthy and he's out there, and the drama and the injuries and everything is all behind the thing going on with his contract and ownership, in this offense with Shane Steichen, with a running back like Anthony Richardson, you have to think you're going to see RPO, zone reads, and things that we saw with the Eagles really help Miles Sanders. I would have to think that you can get a lot out of Jonathan Taylor still if he's healthy and in the right scenario. Still a high volume guy, I would think, if healthy. That's a big if. Yeah,
100%. Yep.
So really in the top five, McCaffrey is number one for both of you guys. I have a different number one. I have McCaffrey as number two. I'm going to tell you why I have Nick Chubb as number one. One, I think he's the best pure running back in the game. That doesn't always mean anything about fantasy football. But when I look at Nick Chubb and I look at the offensive line they have, and with the stability that I'm expecting with the year two of Deshaun Watson, they've got a pretty good team there, but they're always with that run first mentality or that run heavy mentality. If you want to talk about with Kevin Stefanski, they're always going to give him the ball. And he is elite in many categories: contact balance, vision. His speed is good enough. He can give you long runs. He can give you goal line runs. And I don't really fear anybody taking touchdowns away from him. Maybe a few runs by Deshaun Watson. But when you guys look at McCaffrey, what scares me, and I'll talk to you guys about it, is last year he stayed healthy after 2 years of not staying healthy. And he's on a team where there's a lot of different weapons and the ball can go to a lot of people, including other running backs like Elijah Mitchell. Adam, are you 100% sold on McCaffrey as the number one guy?
Well, to justify the trade last year, which they gave up a lot of draft capital, he's got to get the football. He's going to get the football. He'll get in the pass game. He'll get in the run game. The Shanahan offense always, and it'll never change, it starts with the run game, so it'll start with McCaffrey.
True.
They have a quarterback who's very inexperienced in Purdy. Now, the only knock is the injuries, and it's fair. I mean, he's getting up there in age. You do worry about this. Now, he's also, when he's been hurt, he's had lingering injuries where he had a hamstring a couple years ago. It took him forever to come back. That worries me. I have no I love the offense that he's playing, and I have no question if he plays 17 games. He'll be the number one running back easily if he plays 17 games. But that's the thing you worry about, is playing 17 games with this guy.
That's a fair point. And obviously that to me is sort of the difference with him and Chubb, and we'll see. I think you got two really good ones. Austin Eckler, obviously all in our top three. The one thing I would say, Andrew, when you look at his year last year, you're talking about 1,600 combined yards, 18 touchdowns, 107 receptions. I mean, the guy is about as good of a PPR weapon as you could ever ask for. And honestly, I don't blame anybody if they take him number one overall. What I would say, Andrew, though, is I'm always leery of a guy having that kind of year and then duplicating that. That's really tough.
Yeah, he's getting up there in age, and he has had these nagging injuries in his career. But you look at the 107 catches, doesn't give you a ton of volume as a runner. I think he was somewhere around low 200s in carries, I believe. So, but I mean, if you're in a PPR format, you'd be hard pressed to find a more dynamic player to plug in your lineups. I mean, I think that there's so much value in Austin Eckler.
All right. Well, maybe there's another Austin Eckler about to hit the NFL, a guy who can run, a guy who can catch, and a guy who do it all. He is in all of our top fives. Actually, I will say I have him sixth, but I'm thinking about sliding him over Derrick Henry. We'll get to it in a second. That's the rookie from the Falcons, Bijan Robinson, top 10 pick, a guy who can literally do it all. Adam, when I look at Bijan Robinson, and I remember how much the Giants, who were really struggling 5 years ago, rode Saquon Barkley as both a runner, as a receiver. Basically, you be our offense, Saquon, and he had like 2,000 yards, total yards, I think, his first year or two. This is, to me, I think Bijan has the chance to even do that, but a little bit more, because I think his vision, just what he has as a running back, is just so dynamic.
He's got elite traits. Whereas if you look at the Charger with Eckler, he's durable. He plays, he produces. He's now got a great elite play caller in Kellen Moore. Let's go to Atlanta. Arthur Smith hasn't shown me that yet. He hasn't shown to me that he totally gets how to use Bijan. But we know how this works with front offices and coaches. They discuss what they're going to do. You don't make a pick like this unless you're going to get them the football. They will in both the run and pass game. The good thing is Pitts is back. They got Drake London. So they'll be able to diversify their offense. It'll be hard to stay in one area. And boy, did he look great in his first preseason game, Bijan. So, and Algier, Tyler Algier, by the way, had over 1,000 yards rushing. Shockingly. Yeah. And we'll see what Patterson does. But if you want to win and help your defense, get Bijan the ball.
Yeah, 100%. And if you want to win in fantasy football, I think that's a pretty good, get Bijan on your team. And I've seen him going as high as 3 or 4 in some drafts. Andrew, let's talk Derrick Henry as we kind of round out our top 5, top 6 here. I have him right now, for me, as 5. I can understand someone going Barkley. I can understand someone going Taylor there, somebody different. Where do you see Derrick Henry at this stage of his career? Because I personally still think, especially in a standard league, that he's a guy who's going to give you, if healthy, 1,300 to 1,400 yards and most likely double-digit touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, he is nearing 30 years old, Geoff, but I think when you look at 2 out of the last 3 seasons, he's had over 300 carries. He's had double-digit touchdowns in each of the past 5 seasons. Just a really productive player and a reliable player in the centerpiece of their offense. They don't have a lot of bona fide playmakers offensively outside of that. So I think he's going to continue to be the foundational building block of what they're trying to do offensively. That's a pretty safe pick if you're looking to, get a running back in the second round, I would say.
Sure. Adam, where would you have Derrick Henry at this point? He's not in your top 5, but do you consider him right there at 6 to 8, or are you majorly worried? I mean, who's going to take his touchdowns?
Well, a couple things here. They have the worst offensive line of football. It's terrible. They don't have a – Skronsky is going to start at left guard. That's fine. I mean, he'll have to learn how to play it. Dillard's their left tackle. They don't have a right tackle now as he's suspended. The center is undersized, Aaron Brewer, very small guy, around 280. I can't believe they're going to – Radins is hurt. He's still in PUP. This is on paper the worst offensive line of football. I'm avoiding Derrick Henry if I can. He'll get the ball, you're right. I worry you could block for him. Tajay Spears will be a changeup. He's looked great in the preseason. I can't take this guy as my first-round pick. No, he's got the worst offensive line of football. That does worry me.
Yeah, I think he's going early too in a lot, which would make sense given the offensive line situation.
Yeah, he is, Andrew. He is actually going mid to late 2, which is good. But I would not want him as my first back if I could avoid it. Because I know a lot of people now, the big thing in fantasy this year is to go with your receiver in the first round, and that's fine. Then get your running back. You're pretty much going to be getting Derrick Henry as your first back. I am worried about it. Yes, he gets volume. He won't share the ball much. That's great. but I do worry about his ability, his offensive line having the ability to open up holes for him.
All right, fair enough. We'll see with Derrick Henry. The one thing I will agree with you with, guys, when you have the mileage that he has on his body, and you start to get older at 30, you do start to see a decline. I just don't see a whole lot of avenues for the Titans to be able to move the chains a lot. And he's one guy I would say that even with a bad offensive line, he can get you his downhill momentum going. But I agree with you. I mean, there's a big difference between having those 16 and 1700 yard seasons that make you elite to your 1100 and 1200 yard seasons that make you a little bit lesser than what you used to be. Let's talk about people who we expect to break out in 2023. Adam, I love your breakout candidate. I just think he has all the makings of it. As long as we're gonna say this a lot, he stays healthy. Give us your breakout candidate for the Ravens there.
Yeah, this guy was my breakout player last year at running back. Actually, two of them. One was Breece Hall as a rookie, which I rarely do, and he was obviously phenomenal, even though he was a second-round pick, not a first-round pick. As an NFL player, he was great before he got hurt. But this is the guy, J.K. Dobbins of the Ravens. I was pretty certain this was going to be it, and then he tore his ACL right before the season started. A year and a half ago. Almost 2 years ago, actually. In 21, remember, right before the season started, they suffered a bunch of serious injuries, and Dobbins was one of them. And remember, he didn't come back until midseason. He was healthy. He wanted Greg Roman to get him the football. He didn't, and then he did get it, and he looked great. Then he had this bizarre hold-in on PUP, which he just came off of. It's a really odd deal, but he knows he's on a contract year. This is it for him. He's got to do well. And I love this offense that Todd Monk and the offense coordinator is bringing in here. It's completely different from Greg Roman. It's more passing-based, believe it or not, than run-based. Mm-hmm. It's going to be different. This will suit Dobbins. He can catch the football. They're going to be able to spread. They're going to go more for spread here. A lot of three receivers, one back. This fits Dobbins really well, and he's a guy that I love. In fact, right now, Dobbins is going in the early 6th round, which I think is a good value.
That is a good value. He's listen, for all the reasons we know the Ravens, they like to run. He's a guy who can run and catch. Good offensive line, good weapons. You only wonder with the Ravens, sometimes they just wind up doing this committee thing, or they give people different carries at the goal line. They're a little funky like that, but I think the yardage and the touchdowns will be there at the end of the year as long as this guy's healthy. Kid from Ohio State. Andrew, who's your breakout candidate in 2023?
Man, if you can get J.K. Dobbins as your RB2, I mean, you're in pretty good shape. I agree with Adam's pick, but I'm going with Rachaad White, the running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You look, Leonard Fournette's gone. He's going to ascend to the top of the depth chart there. He had 50 receptions last year, almost 800 total yards in that timeshare, forced the timeshare. And I think that he is the guy that's going to lead the ground game. So, I mean, I think when you look at younger players looking to take that leap, he's certainly at the top of my list, or near the top of my list.
Does Rachaad White strike you guys as a good candidate for breakout on volume alone? I mean, I don't know if he's the most talented guy, but
volume.
Right. He's what we call a non-share. He won't be sharing the football. I only put one out. He would be my other guy. I love White. I was able to meet him at the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Super smart guy, hard worker, high character. The knock on him is he's a little bit of a high runner. He will run into the offensive line every once in a while. He's a stop-start vision runner. Great versatility, good size. He'll handle volume. He won't be sharing the football. I'm a big Rachaad White fan. In fact, he right now is going. Let me see where he's going. He is going. Actually, he's still a great value. Mm-hmm. He is going late 7th, early 8th. Late 7th really is where he's going. Pretty good value.
That is good value for him. The guy I expect to break out, and I thought he was on the precipice of doing it last year, but this year I think he's going to take even a bigger jump. Could be top 5, top 6 by the end of the year. Ramondre the Giant Stevenson from the New England Patriots. I'm going to just tell everybody now, don't freak out about Ezekiel Elliott. Don't freak out. Ramondre, because sometimes you freak out when a guy comes, you think he's going to take away like third down responsibilities. No, Ramondre catches the ball as well as any running back. He's got great feet. If you ever watch this guy, for as big as he is, ballerina feet, not necessarily Nick Chubb feet, but pretty close. He's going to be a high volume ball carrier. You do have to worry about the old Bill Belichick system of every once in a while, he likes to give the ball to some guy you never heard of to get 3 or 4 touchdowns in a game.
Brandon Bolden.
Yeah, Brandon Bolden. Andrew, isn't there one we were talking about recently where he just some Patriot scored like 3 touchdowns in a game.
Oh my God, Jonas Gray.
Yeah, Jonas
Oh,
Gray,
God.
exactly.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, Belichick's going to frustrate you, but this is a guy who last year had right over 1,000 yards rushing and I believe about 400 yards receiving on 70 catches. So, I mean, the opportunity for him to play even more, maybe 1,200 yards, maybe, you know, catch 80 balls, get 500, 600 yards receiving. It's going to be there. Bill O'Brien back in charge of the offense. I mean, think about what Ramondre Stevenson did with Matt Patricia in that offense. All right.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to call him
like
a breakout player. I mean, you could, again, it comes down to what you call breakout player, but
mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I'm not worried about Zeke. Stevenson will be their lead back. The only question is, who's the closer? If they get leads, is it going to be Zeke, who still showed he had something left in that type of role, in a volume role when you need him to, or close out a game? You know, Stevenson, the problem with him last year is he wore down in December. And that's the thing you worry about. And they were not going to go with Pierre Strong as the backup. That had no chance to happen. So they signed this guy, Zeke, but I agree with you. Stevenson, by the way, is now going early third round. Early third round.
Wow, earlier than I thought.
I would, yeah, that is a little earlier, but I wouldn't be afraid to take him late 2, early 3. I think he's going to be a dynamic player in the Patriots offense. And I think the Patriots are going to have a better offense this year. It can't be any worse. All right, let's go into guys who we think are on the decline. Maybe you're going to fade a little bit, or just, you know, not as you don't love their draft ADP right now and think you shouldn't go as high. Adam, who's a guy that you're like right now on?
Well, Alvin Kamara, look, was super special for fantasy purposes for many, many years. He's got the 3-game suspension. He's now 28. He's had a lot of volume in his career. He's had knee problems. Now, everybody is a value at some point in their draft, but you can't draft him as your 1. You can't draft him as your 2. You know, if you draft him as your 3rd running back, you're fine. But when we talk about declines, his ADP reflects it. He's an 8th round pick. 8th round, folks, is where he's going. So that tells you.
I'm still not sure I would take him there, to be honest with you.
Really? Well, I mean, I would take him there just on value, but my expectations for him, and remember now, another thing, and this is important, I'm big on judging play callers and evaluating them. Pete Carmichael is no Sean Payton. It's another reason why their backs are not getting as many explosive plays as you would like.
One reason I'd probably be nervous about taking him even in the 8th, Adam, is A, the suspension. He's going to miss a couple of games. B, they brought in Jamal Williams, who had a really nice year last year for the Lions, gets a lot of goal line.
Mr. Goal line.
Yeah. So, and if you're then factoring in, okay, he might lose goal line carries, but he's still a weapon in the passing game. Well, not since Drew Brees left. I mean, can he catch the ball? Yeah, but last year, what did he have? Like 17? Not 7. I'm sorry. He had 57 catches.
He's way down.
Yeah,
way
47. Down. So he's already been in decline since Drew Brees left, and now he's older, and now you got competition. So I'd be really, really worried about him there. So good one on that one. Andrew, who do you see as a guy who's in decline, or you're fading?
Well, I'm going with someone who struggled with injuries. He had a decent year last year, so I think he's a little bit higher on people's list, and they think they can probably get him as a value pick as an RB2. James Conner. I don't love what's going on with Arizona. I think they're a team in transition right now. Don't know how many opportunities they're going to be ahead in games to give him give him opportunity. So I mean, I'm out on him. Maybe if you can get him as your RB3 for just on volume purposes.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I remember being out on James Conner last year because the year before he averaged 3.7 a carry, didn't even get to 1,000 yards. He seemed kind of, you know, a guy who's getting the ball but not really doing a whole lot. I think he had a couple of touchdowns. He had 15 touchdowns, but I remember talking with Adam about it. It doesn't match. He's averaging 3.7 yards per carry. He doesn't
share it. Andrew talked about he doesn't share the ball, but they've got probably the NFL's 2nd worst offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Really bad. Quarterback situation's dreadful. If this is the NFL's worst team, I don't know what is.
They're going to be up there.
They're bad, but Conner, at least he's a volume guy. He did a great job. You know, he's going to get hurt. He's just unfortunately been like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you. He is now 28. You know who might be the backup? Corey Clement.
Corey Clement. Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh, wow.
Good for Corey. Good for Corey.
Do people still think Arizona is in the NFC East? Because hasn't he played for every other?
I know. Look, I remember. Look, I'm old enough to remember when the St. Louis Cardinals would come here. Then by the way, Buddy Ryan was a former Cardinals coach, but we digress. Look, we love Hollywood Brown at receiver. I talked about him in our receiver show. But man, they're a disaster. Good luck, Jonathan Gannon, with this team.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Speaking of good luck with this team and this guy, a guy I'm fading, especially based on ADP. Now, I'm not telling you not to take this guy. Last year to me is just unreplicatable, and that's Josh Jacobs. I don't even have him in my top 10. I'm very, very leery of the 400 touches that he had last year. That's an insane amount of touches for a running back who for his first 3 years was an underperformer and then all of a sudden exploded because he's really the primary weapon on that team along with Devontae Adams. They've had a quarterback change. I do think he has to get the ball based on what else do they have outside of Devontae Adams, but I just can't imagine this guy getting 2,000 total yards. And one thing about his great season last year, did catch the ball 53 times, but no touchdowns receiving. So I just think that there's a lot of funny money or funny numbers that went on with him last year. And I just can't justify a top 10. I don't believe in him as a top 10 pick.
393 touches is insane.
Yep. DeMarco Murray, line one.
Really? I mean, you can't imagine. I mean, look, he was incredible. Averaged just under 5 yards per carry on 340 carries. That's ridiculously great.
Mm-hmm.
But to duplicate this, not being with the team here, I still expected one way or the other. I expected to be there week one. I don't know how they have to do this. The reason I say that, guys just never miss games. They just don't.
Right.
They always show up. The one guy to do it did a full season. That ruined his career. That was Le'Veon Bell. What a stupid decision. He lost all that money. He was never the same when he came back the following year with the Jets. He was terrible.
Yeah.
I wish they'd treat him better. Jacobs deserves better. He's done everything they've asked. They made next to no attempt to extend his contract where the Giants tried. So they know they have any chance they need him in here. To even have a chance at 8 wins, which is probably a stretch, he's got to be in there.
There you go. All right, let's get to some real late round options. You're trying to round out your roster. You're going to take a stab on a guy. Adam, give me a guy that you just kind of like really late.
I actually like 3 guys, and I'll be brief here. Kenny Gainwell, who's moved up in drafts. He was going in like the 14th round because it gets out. You know, the beat reporters who cover the Eagles are noticing in practice how much he's getting the football. Now, look, it could change by week 2. Okay, Kenny, we've outlined this on Inside the Birds. Kenny Gainwell is not explosive like Swift, but he's an unbelievable short yardage runner, great conversion rate. He's decisive. These coaches, we talked this. Geoff and I have talked about this on Inside the Birds for really 3 seasons now. But he's still a very good value in the 9th round. That's a great sleeper round. Another guy I love, who's my favorite back coming out for this draft, other than Bijan, Zach Charbonnet. They're going to have a 2-man backfield. He's a power guy. He could be volume. Where Kenneth Walker's always trying to break the big run. Charbonnet is a guy that could be a 3-down back. He's also right now a very good value going in the. I would say right now the 9th round. Yeah, he's going to the 9th round by ADP. That's a very good value as your 3rd or 4th back. And this is one of my favorite running backs. Is Khalil Herbert of the Bears, who should be in a timeshare. He's explosive. Talked to John DeFilippo, the former quarterbacks coach of the Bears recently in 21. John said that he absolutely can handle 15 carries a game if need be. Loves him. He says he's explosive, very underrated, former 6th-round pick. He's another guy that not enough people are talking about. Herbert is even better value going in about the 10th round.
Wow, that's good. Yeah, he could in that offense if they toss him the ball a little bit too. He can make some hay there. Good stuff. All right, Andrew, are there any rookie? You're always big on rookies. Any rookies not named Bijan Robinson that we should be looking out for in the late rounds?
Yeah, I have 2. Devin Achane, the running back from the Dolphins. He's an explosive home run hitter. Get him in that outside zone scheme. I mean, obviously Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson have struggled to stay healthy and available. And I think Achane gives you that explosive home run hitting ability. I would try and get him late in the draft and plug him in. And, he could explode and take over, or he could have a pretty prominent role. And then Roshan Johnson, the running back, he was drafted in the 5th round. He's going to be in a timeshare in the Bears backfield, as Adam alluded to. I like Khalil Herbert. I think that Johnson can overtake Deontay Foreman as the 2. He's a tough physical downhill runner. I think he has a nose for the end zone. Played behind Bijan at Texas, so he didn't get a lot of notoriety. But I think that he's a player that doesn't have anything that really jumps off the page from a traits perspective. But I think his pass protection and things like that are going to propel him to number 2 on the depth chart.
Good stuff. All right, 2 rookies there. The rookie from Texas, Roscoe Johnson, and Devin A. Train. He was West Virginia, I believe.
Devin A.
A-Train? No.
A&M.
A&M. That's right. A&M. 2 guys from Texas. Good stuff.
Roshan Johnson, probably.
Roshan.
Yeah.
What did I say? Roscoe?
Yeah.
There was a Roscoe Johnson too. That went
Maybe.
to
Roscoe Parrish.
Roscoe Powell. Well, you know, Roscoe P.
Oh, the
Coltrane.
receiver, right? Roscoe
Yeah.
Parrish, wasn't he the
Yeah.
receiver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. A couple of guys I like real late in the rounds. You know, obviously they start off in some kind of reduced role, but have a chance maybe if there's an injury to really, or if there's not performance by the starter to take over. One of them, Jalen Warren for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
He looks good.
He looks good. He's explosive, and Najee Harris has just not performed for the first 2 years. You can say the offensive line was an issue. You can say the offense is an issue. I can buy it. But if he's not better this year and moving the chains, they are not going to hesitate to put the ball in Jalen Warren's hands. And if he were to take over as the number 1 in that offense sometime at some point in the year, he could put up some pretty good numbers there with Kenny Pickett and that gang. So I like Jalen Warren. And who else did I like? Oh, I mentioned him earlier. I like Elijah Mitchell. I think if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt and Mitchell is healthy, yeah, but you're talking about late round, right? You have him on your bench. McCaffrey gets hurt. This guy goes in. He can give you 3, 4, 5 games of real of good production in the fantasy. So we're taking a shot on at the end.
Late rounder. Yep.
There you go. All right, man, that was good stuff. That was awesome. Next week, we will get into wide receivers again. We've already done quarterbacks. That is up on our YouTube channel. This is on the YouTube channel. We will have it all podcasted and look forward to doing wide receivers and then tight ends to finish it off the following week. For Andrew DiCecco and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. You've been watching the 2023 Inside the Birds Fantasy Football Preview Series.